One of the things that separates fakers from makers, makers in the C-suite are asking questions and having conversation that are relevant to their level. You've got to be asking strategic questions about, hey, how are you making the transition with the industry changing to X or Y or Z?
Sales Logic with Mark Hunter and Meredith Elliott Powell is brought to you by VanillaSoft.
Most people refer to VanillaSoft as the solution. It's the solution to ensure sales reps make the right number of attempts for every lead across all channels, including email, social, and the phone. It's the solution to serve the rep the next best lead every single time. You need to get your solution at vanillasoft.com.
Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and welcome to another Saturday morning where you are going to be a guest on Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to really sell effectively, more successfully, and well logically. And I'm here with my co-host, Mark Hunter. Mark, I'm super excited about the show this morning.
Hey, I am too. The topic we have is great. The question's great. Hey, it's just going to be a good show. So, hey, why don't you tell the audience kind of how the show works? I'll kind of walk through the stuff and we'll get it rolling. How's that sound?
That sounds good. All right. We come to you every Saturday morning because who doesn't want to be selling on a Saturday, right? We start the show every week with a question from our audience. That's right. We want you to be a part of Sales Logic. So if you have a question, just go to our website, saleslogicpodcast.com, or just throw it out there on social media and hashtag Sales Logic. We cover a topic that's relevant. We suggest a book, and we end up with a lightning round because we want you to walk away with return on investment, things that you can put into place immediately. So, Mark, what's on tap this morning?
Well, this morning we're going to be talking about the C-suite. And you know, it's a subject we really haven't delved into yet, so I'm glad it's on the agenda. The topic is selling to the C-suite. That's what we're going to be talking about in the lightning round. So you want to stick around for that. We got a book that lines up well with it. So, hey, let's jump into the question. And this is a great question. And I want you to pay attention to where it comes from. We truly have a global audience out there. It comes from Umar in Senegal. He asks, I've been in sales for more than 20 years, always selling into the same industry. I recently took a new role within our company and I've gone from selling to manufacturing reps to selling to the C-suite. I am struggling to make the transition. I know the product, believe in our product, and if I can get in the door, I can make the sale. The problem is I just can't get in the door. I don't care where you are in the world. This is a universal global problem. So, Mayor, jump in.
Yeah, I love this question because I don't know about you, Mark, but I get asked this question so often. I mean, selling into the C-suite is just a different animal. And while I always think it was challenging, it's become even more challenging since COVID. And the reason is because executives are busy. They have a lot on their plate and they have their own mind as to what is the priority and what is most important to them. So the first thing you need to do is to realize that probably a lot of the strategies that you work to sell into other positions are probably not going to work in the C-suite. My favorite way to get into the C-suite is to get a champion, is to find somebody else who knows my contact, who can open the door for me. Because while the C-suite may not respond to me, if Mark knows somebody there, the chances that they're going to let me through the door are a whole lot easier.
See, now this is where, Umar, you've got something going for you because you were selling to manufacturing reps before. In other words, you were empowering manufacturing reps to carry you into companies. Now, you know what you're doing? You're doing the same thing, but on the C-suite level. And you got to find that champion. Who is that champion that will carry you into the C-suite? Because here's the whole thing. C-suite, they just don't want other people wandering around. Why? Because, well, it's just not safe for them from an information. You think about this. A CEO in a business can't go to the cafeteria and sit down and complain about management. Oh, they are management. You see, so they have to be very guarded about what they say, who they connect with, et cetera. So as a result, you've got to be carried in by somebody. Now, carried in by somebody might be the gatekeeper. Yeah, you can create a relationship with the gatekeeper, but it's going to be a two-step process to get to that CEO.
Yeah, I love the comment from Omakar. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but how do you get in the door? Well, you knock with yourself and your network. I love that comment. Mark, something that you said was that it's going to be a two-step process. I think the other thing that Umar needs to be prepared for is the fact that this is going to be a longer sales process. Now, the good news is the payoff is going to be great because once you get in with the C-suite, good chance if you can sell it, you're probably going to sell a lot and have that relationship for a long time. But brace yourself because it is going to be a long process. I would say another thing is you need to redefine the problems you're solving, because when you were selling to manufacturing reps, their problems may not have been exactly the same as the executives. I mean, executives come down to a couple of things. I mean, they need cash flow. They've got to get the budget going. They're looking for return on investment. Can you make them more productive, more efficient? Can you attract more customers? But what are the biggest pain points? You need to redefine that and make sure you're selling the right things and the right problems.
Which means you've got to be thinking strategically and not tactically. So many times what happens is people view, because again, you were dealing with manufacturing reps. So you were dealing with more tactical framework, tactical strategies. Now it's strategic. The CEO always has to be one step ahead of the organization. So if I can't position as being strategic, why would the CEO want to entertain me? They're just going to kick me downstairs to somebody lower who is going to make the tactical. Well, okay, that may be a strategy, but why waste my time trying to get into the CEO just to get kicked out? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, try a lot of mediums to get connected to the CEO. I mean, use the telephone, use the email, use a lot of content marketing. Make sure you're connected to them on LinkedIn so that they can see the articles and things that you're writing that speak directly to the problems that they have. Also, cite other competitors and things that you have worked with and get some social proof as to the difference that you've made. Think about this. A C-suite executive only has so much time. So who they're going to give their time to, better make sure that they're going to get something from that meeting. So they're looking for proof and the result that you're going to give before they're going to allow you into their C-suite and into having that sales conversation.
Spot on with that. Let's kind of transition into the topic, which was selling to the C-suite. Because I'll tell you what, this question lines up well with the topic, selling to the C-suite. And here's something that I have always found, if you think about it. The C-suite is more enamored. Enamored's a bad word. Places more value in relationships than any other level of the organization. Because to them, that's safety. If it's within their network, you have got to be seen as part of their network. And go back to what Mayor was talking about earlier in terms of who's going to help carry you in. You have to create, and this is where it's so important. And we talked about this before. I talk about this a lot. Your reputation arrives before you do. Let me tell you something. Nobody's getting into the C-suite without them checking out who is this person? Who is this lady? Who is this gentleman? What does the internet have to say about them? If your reputation is not stellar, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, they have to have heard of you and about you. So again, let's go back to the pain points. Do you really understand the pain points that the C-suite is experiencing, and what content are you putting out there about them? If there's a good chance if they've seen you on LinkedIn, if they've seen a video or read an article, you should go to their trade magazines and really try to be an author in their trade magazines and try to even maybe speak at some of their events and conferences, because that's going to position you as somebody who is a thought leader. And it's a chance, it's an easy and comfortable way for them to get familiar with you.
This is so true because there's a circle, there's a network, and you have to be part of it. And here's something that I have always found in terms of dealing with the C-suite. They're not really into the tactical information, the technical information, the specs, the performance. They could care less. In fact, you know what? If you share that with them, they're going to say, wait a minute, you're about to embarrass me because I don't know. You see, this is where your conversation always has to remain up at that strategic level, the bigger picture. You have to keep your focus. Where is this going to help take the company 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years down the road? And don't think for a moment that, oh, just because this is an expensive item, there is no budget. There is no budget in the C-suite because they just take from other people's budgets.
So true, so true. Mark, I think a big thing that you're really talking about that's critically important is if you're going to call on the C-suite, you better be prepared. You think you had to do your research at other levels. You think you had to have a set of questions ready at other levels. The C-suite, you better take it up a notch. Anything that you better go in there already knowing things about the company. And you're going to ask questions to really find out things. But more importantly, you better be one step ahead of that CEO. Listen, because he or she already has ideas strategically of where they're taking the company. They understand what the challenges are. They understand what the opportunities are. But you need to start to make them think about things they haven't thought of before. New ideas, new solutions, new things that they could do.
See, that is so key because it's the conversation that you create. This is one of the things that separates fakers from makers. Makers in the C-suite are asking questions and having conversation that are relevant to their level. They're talking at their level. They're not sitting there playing at, oh, tell me about how many years you've been with the company. Tell me about what it's like to work here. No, those are fake. Those are garbage questions. You've got to be asking strategic questions about, hey, how are you making the transition with the industry changing to X or Y or Z? And what I love is this, and some people confront me on this in the C-suite. I personally love it. I love asking really deep, challenging questions that are going to get both of us thinking, both of us talking. Because what does that do? That demonstrates to the CEO that I'm not afraid to sit there. I'm not afraid to be on this conversation. I'm not afraid to really participate in a conversation with you. And I'm willing to have the tough conversation, the tough questions. And when I can throw out questions that they can't answer and I can't answer, but it really creates a conversation, wow, suddenly I'm seen at an entirely different level.
Yeah, I love this. I love this question that our friend Larry Levine has put up here. Welcome to the show, Larry. But are you worthy of having a conversation with? I think that's a really good question to ask yourself and a great one to ask before you head into the C-suite. I also think that if you're going to go into the C-suite, if you're trying to get in that door, think about where C-suite people go. What conventions, what conferences are they attending? If you're calling on them in your local community, what organizations are they passionate about? Are they involved in? You know, so often I see some of the biggest CEOs in a certain industry really getting involved in their trade organization. So have you joined that trade organization? Are you a part of it? Where can they get to see you in action so that when you knock on that door, they're more willing and more open to letting you through the door to have that conversation?
Yeah, let's run back to that question Larry brings up because it is a key point. Just because, people have always been told, oh, yeah, always start at the top. Always start at the top. Call the C-suite. Hold it. What a lot of people sell isn't even worthy of the C-suite's time. See, if what you're selling is components that go into an OEM, if what you're selling is a basic service, a CEO could care less. You have to ask yourself, is what I'm selling of strategic value and importance to the CEO in their decision-making process long-term? And if it doesn't pass that sniff test, don't even waste your time. Don't waste your time with the C-suite because all you're going to do is try to get a check mark and it's not going to lead you anywhere.
Yeah. Also know that really, stay with it on the front end because all you need to do is to get through the door with one or two executives in an industry, and it's going to open the door for so many other executives. You just need to get through with one. And if you go back to your network, the chances that you're going to have a connection to somebody is the fastest way to get in the door. And if you sell that, that's social proof you can use for other executives.
Oh, we have far more connections than we realize if you care to use them. And again, this is where your network is. So you never stop cultivating your network. Because again, there may be a mid-level relationship. I talk about it in my book of mine for sales. You want to create a list of 50 people who you'd love to have a relationship with. And your goal is to get a relationship with them. And you start finding who are people on that ladder, so to speak, that are going to get you to that person. And you begin developing those relationships and those relationships. You see, really opening up C-suites many times can be not just a multi-month process, but a multi-year process. But the rewards can be absolutely significant once you make that transition, because now you are far more valuable to yourself. You're far more valuable to your company if you can cultivate this C-suite network, this level of C-suite relationships.
Yeah, I also think that you need to really think about expanding how you view sales and really what that means. And I think you need to think about truly speaking at conferences and events, inviting people to to watch short videos and really position yourself as the authority. Executives are looking for somebody who can help them take their organization to the next level. If I've never heard of Mark, I've never seen anything that Mark has written, and Mark is promising me that he's got some kind of product that's going to rock my world, I have nothing to base that on. I only have X amount of hours in a day, and I'm going to give that time to somebody that I have tested the waters with. So it is time to update your communication skills, your speaking skills, and your presentation skills. And I want to add to that something that Mark said earlier. Do not waste your time on the tactics. If you are lucky enough to get a call with a C-suite professional, get to the good stuff first. And if that piques their interest, they'll go back for the rest.
See, the C-suite person isn't interested in meeting with a salesperson. They are interested in meeting with a person who's going to bring them insights. That's the key difference. If they see you as a salesperson, they'll send you to purchasing. If they see you as a person who has insights that they can benefit from, then they may open the door to you. But again, that comes back to, how are you seen out there? What do people think of you in the marketplace? Hey, we should probably keep scooting along here, because we got a great, you picked out a great book.
I did. And to tell you the truth, I left it in my closet downstairs, but that's okay. That's okay, because I can talk about it. It is actually selling into the selling into the C-suite, what every executive wants you to know about successfully selling to the top. This is such a good book. I actually listened to it on audio first, and then ended up buying the book because I wanted to make some notes and things in it. But this really tells you how to sell to the C-suite from the C-suite's perspective, from them telling you what they want you to do and what you to know if you're going to sell into them successfully.
And a big shout out to the authors. I met Stephen years ago, and he is incredibly smart. He's got a PhD. The research that has gone into it, and this is the second edition. The first edition, yes, it first came out years ago. And I'll tell you what, this is your go-to manual. Get this book if you are going to be going into the C-suite. So anyway, hey, with that, let's kind of jump in, because this is a topic. I love this topic. Here's the lightning round. The lightning round. Best ideas to get past the gatekeeper. And man, we could go into extended long play on this one.
Best idea. All right. I do want to make a comment, because boy, we got people rolling in here right now. Jack Hubbard, you are so right. There is nothing worse than a desperate salesperson. I always say that desperation smells. You can smell it miles away, and it's the biggest way to lose a deal. And John Russo says, if you're selling into the head of marketing, but are asked to co-present, sell to her CFO at the head of marketing request, what would you do to succeed with that CFO conversation? John, this is such a good question. I love the fact that you said marketing and you put in the CFO, because you talk about two different mindsets, right? And I see salespeople make the mistake around this all the time. In my opinion, sell to the CFO first, and talk about how what you're selling is either going to make money or is going to improve process, profits, productivity, and efficiency. Calm the mind of the CFO from why this is a good financial investment. Once that is set, go on and sell to marketing. Mark, what do you think about that?
And I'll tell you what, and don't hesitate at all. If you got them sitting in a room, sit there and say, okay, this is interesting. I got the CFO and the CMO. Now, you probably have maybe some different objectives. I want to hear them both. And you let them both put them on the table. And you know what? By you asking that of both them, you're demonstrating your confidence. You're demonstrating that you can play with them. Because yes. I am sure the CFO and the CMO have had more than a few disagreements with how to spend money, with how to allocate money and objectives they want to get from the money.
Yeah, and I would also say, I love Mark's comment about basically calling a spade and just saying, I realize that you're here, you have two different objectives, but make sure you help them understand how your product or service gets them on the same page. Because the CFO and CMO should not be disconnected, but in so many companies, they are disconnected. But what a champion, a partner, and an advisor you look like when you could say, CFO, this is what I heard, you need to accomplish this. And I would go in with some confidence around that. I get it. As the CFO, your job is to protect the company. We've got to watch what we spend. We've got to generate revenue. And as marketing, you've got to increase the brand, make us get aware, get new clients in. I want to show you how what I am offering can help you both achieve both of your objectives and align you to take the company forward.
Spot on. Okay.
All right. What were we talking about?
Well, this is great. This is absolutely terrific because it's really about how do we get past the gatekeeper and how do we get to those great conversations. So, what are some of those techniques that we got to get because there's so many spins on this one we can run.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first and foremost, you need to understand that the gatekeeper is the first person you're selling to. Do not diminish the gatekeeper. And you probably heard that 1,000 times, but you need to, I'm not talking about making him or her your friend and knowing them by their first name and knowing their birth date. Understand that a gatekeeper today is that executive's right arm. They are no longer the person who is typing a note or doing something like that. CEOs can do that by themselves. This person is truly a partner. So you need to treat them and elevate them in your mind that you're selling to them first.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask them the same questions I'm going to ask the CEO, because many times that gatekeeper is the gatekeeper as to whether or not you have that level of intelligence that you can play with the CEO.
I love that Simon said, quit calling them gatekeepers. Great thing, right? They're truly the partner. They're truly the partner to the CEO. Once I have really formed a relationship with them, Mark said, kind of asking them the same questions and things, I ask the gatekeeper for advice. Once I formed that relationship and connection, I'm helping them become my partner in getting to the C-suite level.
I don't call them partners. I actually call them door openers. And so anyway, but you're right. It's about having the right mindset. Here's something that I love to do. I am notorious if I'm trying to get into that C-suite, I send people books. Not my book. Yeah. I send other people the book. In fact, I got a copy right here. Atomic Habits is a book I read a couple months ago, and I have sent out 6 copies to CEOs. And you know what's interesting? You send a book to a CEO and saying, "Hey, I read this, thought it might be of interest to you." You generally get a response back. Now, it's a $20 purchase. Who cares? If I can get into the C-suite, it's money well spent. Don't hesitate in the least bit. And what I like about this is an intellectual. This isn't I'm sending you some sort of gift. No, I'm sending you an intellectual property, you see. So it's viewed differently by the CEO.
Yeah. Also, I love what Jack Hubbard said here. Gatekeepers are decision makers. You don't get by them. You collaborate with them. A big thing I know that I do in my business is that once I have sold the gatekeeper, the decision maker, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to help them understand how to sell me to the executive. I'm going to make it really easy for them. I'm going to take all of that out of their hands, worrying about how to do it. And I'm going to tell them how to position things. I'm going to share that information, and I'm going to make it as easy as possible to sell me to the executive.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, there may be an executive that I have a little bit of a relationship with. You know what I do? I love sending them a Saturday morning email because CEOs don't stop working on the weekend. No. They're working 24/7. And what I found is, now I'm not sending them a, hey, buy from, no, what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, I just read this in the Wall Street Journal, just saw this in Barron, just saw this in The Economist. Here's a couple pieces. I'll include a link. They won't open the link. CEOs will never open links because the last thing they want to do is get malware, spam into their company. But if you just put a couple bullet points and then, where you found it, they'll go read it. What I found is, I can do this on a Saturday morning and I will generally get 40, 50, 60% response rate. Hey, thanks back. In fact, I shared with you, Meredith, remember, there was a CEO that I sent a document to, and 2 hours later, he sent me back a video message. He did a video message with his phone. He was so excited about the document I had shared with him.
Well, you bring up a great comment there, and the document you shared with them was a white paper that we wrote, which is a great way to get to the C-suite. Is if you can have some kind of document or white paper or research information that addresses a specific problem they've got, it's not only valuable to them, but it positions you as so much more than a sales professional. But the last thing that I want to say about the gatekeeper, because I think this is really important, is don't forget them. Mark said sometimes you have a relationship with the CEO and you can go straight to the CEO, backtrack and bring the gatekeeper in. Oh my gosh, I have seen so many people who meet my husband on the golf course or at an event, and they forget his gatekeeper. They sell directly to him, and they'll call the office and not even say anything to his gatekeeper and just say, could I talk to Rob? And I think you just don't get it, because Rob makes no decision that he does not talk to his assistant first. She really runs that office and makes all the decisions. He doesn't. Don't bypass them.
Yeah, you have to be very mindful of who else is out there. I still go back to a situation that I totally was unaware of. I was speaking at a conference. The CEO was there. The president of the company was there. And I'm walking from the hotel across the street to the convention center. And I'm carrying a cup of coffee. And behind me are a couple of women. And I just do what I always do. I held the door open for them and said, good morning. And they walked in and so forth. No big deal. At lunch that day, I learned something. The two women I held the door open for happened to be the spouses of the CEO and the president of the company. And have I been
not raised very well?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And it was purely because I just did something I just always do. I just hold the door open for people behind me. It was nothing, no big deal. But see, this is the whole thing. The C-suite is respect. The C-suite is integrity. The C-suite is transparency. And if you can't demonstrate those three things, you're never going to get past the gatekeeper, regardless of who the gatekeeper is. And you're certainly not going to survive with the CEO. Throw out a couple more, and then we'll kind of shut things down here.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to get past the gatekeeper, find other people just like with the C-suite that are connected to the gatekeeper. Give the gatekeeper a reason to sell you. Go back to that social proof. Use some proven things. Realize they're smart. Their job is to keep the gate, to protect the CEO. So you've got to give them reasons. You've got to give them some reasons. So if there are other people, again, go back to your network, that know and are connected to the gatekeeper, then use that network to further sell the gatekeeper. Go with some social proof of some people they recognize.
I love it. Hey, don't hesitate to reach out at 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. Because you know what? That door opener, that partner, that gatekeeper, they're still working. And you know what? They're going to respect you for working. And suddenly, you're in their eyes, you just went up one more notch. One more, and then we'll close it down.
All right, I got to answer. I'm going to use my one more to answer Eduardo's question. How do you start a conversation when you don't have enough insight information to share or discuss? Well, that's a great question, Eduardo, because you don't start the conversation if you don't have enough of that. You need to go back and you need to do research. The beauty of the internet is, oh my gosh, can you find information not only out about the company, but you can find a lot of information out about gatekeepers and the C-suite. I always connect with the gatekeepers in the C-suite on LinkedIn. And it blows my mind what I can find in their profiles. Not only information about the business, but I'll find out that the gatekeeper is a big golfer, just like me, or that the CEO, his favorite thing to do is to, hike on the weekends, or we've read the same book. I mean, you never know. I had one the other day. We're both dog lovers. So that was something that, that we had in common. So go back and do that research. If you're still struggling, start out with interviews and interview other people in the industry. You're just, hey, this is Eduardo. I'd like to find out a little bit about the industry, and ask some open-ended questions, but do not start that conversation without doing that.
So spot on there. Hey, you know what? This is going to be a topic. We need to do a Focus 30. This is kind of a new thing that we're starting. You're going to start seeing them appear on Sales Logic podcast website. But Focus 30, it's where myself and Meredith, what do? We dive deep into one particular subject. But hey, right now we need to shut this down. So I'm going to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show. It's how we grow to help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell. This has been an amazing show.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right, keep your questions coming, and we'll see you next Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern for another episode of Sales Logic. And don't forget the Focus 30s. You'll be hearing more about that. And Mark, you are so right. We need to take this subject into a Focus 30. All right, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Most people refer to VanillaSoft as the solution. It's the solution to ensure sales reps make the right number of attempts for every lead across all channels, including email, social, and the phone. It's the solution to serve the rep the next best lead every single time. You need to get your solution at vanillasoft.com.